Hello?
Howdy.
How's it going?
I'm doing good.
Here, let me mute my stuff.
Gotcha.
All right, I'm here.
I'm happy to have you. How you doing?
Pretty good. How about you?
Pretty good. I just had a pleasant conversation with somebody who generally disagrees with me, so I'm in a good mood.
Well, that's good. I feel like he actually agreed with you more. You got him to kind of concede on certain things, didn't you?
Oh, well, I don't know if he conceded. I think that having pleasant conversations with people who disagree can be very eye-opening. But yeah, maybe I can talk to him again in the future, see if any of his perspectives change.
Well, my whole thing is, what does Black Lives Matter to you? Like, what's the goal? Where are we going?
I think it's generally about police reform and about calling attention to socioeconomic issues that kind of fuck over black folk. Obviously, the police issues take precedence because it's very easy to direct antagonism against the police, but I think the broader interest is a lot more, wide in scope.
Right. So it's very vague and it's hard to kind of explain to people. That's kind of the sense I get when people, because it's like, okay, cops, I can articulate a decent argument for Blue Lives Matter. Blue Lives Matter because they're being basically much like the proletariat, as you guys obsess over, they're being basically stretched thin, right? You look at an Amazon worker and you guys sympathize and simp for them, but then you look at police officers and you say, oh, these guys aren't working class. They're not part of the proletariat, group. So we're gonna just go ahead and criticize, even though they're the last staple of working class, union, and middle class, semblance of what used to be.
So, first of all, I don't think it's necessarily difficult to describe the aims of BLM. The organization BLM has a website page where they describe their intentions, but the movement is a lot broader. But I think it's pretty easy to boil it down to one or two sentences. When it comes to cops, though, cops are, I think by anyone's definition, proletariat. That's why they're called class traitors, because they are a member of the proletariat, but they serve the interests of the bourgeois. I don't think there's necessarily a contradiction between advocating for the interests of the working class while also...
Can I push back?
Yeah,
Can I
sure.
push back a little bit? So what does ACAB mean then? Why throw these slurs at police officers?
Well, ACAB's not a slur. It's
fry pig or whatever, fry them like bacon.
Well, they don't like cops very much. ACAB, all cops are bastards.
So can I do the same to an Amazon worker who delivers my packages and call him a class traitor?
Do you think that ACAB is about one time a cop did a bad job of their job?
Well, do you think that because a worker has to take a job that he's contributing to like the bourgeois class because, he's basically betraying us, like he's crossing picket lines?
Well,
or do you think these immigrants and people of color who are predominantly people of color just need to work and put food on the table?
Well, if you cross picket lines, you do get called mean words by us. Yeah. Breaking a picket line is one of the worst things that you can do for the working class. It demonstrates an astonishing lack of solidarity for you to interrupt other people's strike. Yeah.
So do you think that it's a better reflection of that, what you just stated, or it's a better reflection of the fact that every individual is basically internalizing their struggle that they're facing, and we're very selfish creatures by nature and science, and so survival is at the peak of our pyramid, and so these people say it sucks, I feel very bad about doing this, but at the end of the day I have to think about myself and my family.
Yeah,
and
but
I think
you could make that excuse for anyone's behavior. Usually criminals get into their shit because of a complicated weave of psychological and socioeconomic conditions that lead them to do criminal and sometimes very horrible things. You could say the same thing for Nazi soldiers. My criticism here isn't of the individual moral character of any cop. My criticism is of the position of the police or the position of scabs in the relationship to the working class.
But you understand how I'm trying to kind of build a bridge here, right? And letting you know that I can concede that with the Amazon worker just as well as I can concede that to the Blue Lives Matter folks and to the police officers who, after decades of horrible liberal and progressive policies and regulations, have been stretched to cover all kinds of and respond to all kinds of things, right?
Wait. Hold on. So I can't have you erase history here. First of all, crime is at a historic low over the past 50 years, and police budgets have continued to rise. And in addition to that, much of the legislation that was intended to distribute police workforces across other departments was challenged by police unions because they wanted sole control over those activities. So the idea that it was like progressives and liberals destroying the livelihood of cops is just not the case. Cops do have tough jobs.
Wait a minute. So Joe Biden and all the Democrats and liberals who, all you guys that push regulations and policies and things like that.
Wait, we have to be specific,
right?
though.
Wait. Okay, so I'm getting to it. So you don't think that enticed the right to use those same tactics, much like they're using those tactics against Ruth Bader Ginsburg?
That is complete
no, that's what happened with the drug war.
That's
Nixon
a complete,
came in.
Wait. That is a complete non sequitur. Hold on. So policies aren't even enacted in police departments on a national level. This is very much a local jurisdiction thing. I don't know what you mean about Biden did a thing, so thus Ruth Bader Ginsburg, they do a thing. So wait, are we talking about the police or no?
We are, and that's what I'm saying is that there have been the way that Democrats have approached this has led the Republicans to use
what?
They erode. There are certain things that Democrats erode. Let me give you an example. For example, right, with this Ruth Bader Ginsburg nominee, the Democrats were the ones that got rid of certain rules that would basically have prevented this whole situation, right? The 60 votes.
Yeah, the Senate. Yeah. I thought there was
a pattern. And in the past,
wait, do you know why Democrats did that?
Because obstruction. The Republicans don't want to get us our way. Wah.
No. The Republicans were literally not fulfilling their function in government. Without them lowering the threshold for them being able to appoint a Supreme Court candidate, the government would literally not be fulfilling their function. This is the issue. So the only reason the Democrats did that is because the Republicans were defaulting on their responsibility as senators.
Okay, and if I even concede to that, what's the big deal then? Why are Democrats freaking out over this?
Wait, I don't know why we're talking about Ruth Bader Ginsburg. I thought we were talking about police.
The Democrats set a precedent, and that it has been shown. You say that like the police and all these rules that they have to enforce only come from local and state. That's ridiculous. The whole drug war is based on federal policies passed by legislators.
Yeah, wait. Yes, that is true. Okay. But generally speaking, police behavior is dictated by local law. And even then, the drug war was a set of federal policies that in certain instances don't even apply to state actors. That's why in my state, I can smoke a blunt and not get in trouble for it because the police that run around are city and state police. But if I go into an airport, TSA can arrest me because they operate on federal law. So like, this is a very complicated subject, but I want to focus on police. So do you believe it is possible that there could be issues with the way the police function and that it might be preferable if we distributed their responsibilities to other departments?
Yes, I can get behind that to a certain point. Like I've recently I am sort of like becoming like right wing in a sense. Like I actually have come from the left, and I'm more becoming a centrist, right? So I can agree with you on that. Like I'm not going to like LARP for like Boogie Boys or whatever here. I'm trying to make you understand that you talk about history, but you don't remember like Nixon's war on drugs. That's Democrat and Republican, buddy.
I know that. Wait. I'm sorry. Just so you know, I don't like the Democrat Party. I think that it's generally better than the Republican Party, generally speaking, but I don't like the Democrat Party at all. My goal for like defunding the police or ACAB or whatever has nothing to do with like my investment in the moral character of the Democrats. I don't like either of the political parties. I think they're both fucking useless. I just think one of them is more malicious than the other. When it comes to like the police, though, the reason lefties say ACAB isn't because they think every cop individually is a bad human. I've met like good cops, you know, like good people who had the job of police officer, but the institution of the police does a lot of harm. They left the call. Did they disconnect, or was that
Hello?
My man, what's up?
Hey.
Okay. Anyway, I don't know how much you caught.
That was on me.
No worries. I don't know how much you caught before you DC'd, but basically, I just think that there are elements of the police as an institution, not as a collection of individuals, that are irreparably damaging. And therefore, the ACAB slogan, all cops are bastards, isn't about saying every cop is individually a bad person, but is rather about by being a cop, your institutional position, your relationship to the world is one of a bastard. you know.
Right. Would you say that there are other positions in our society that can be equivalent to that we don't hold with such disdain?
Yeah. There. I mean, well, for example, like the stockholder, the bourgeois, the bourgeois and landlords are both like the two other groups of people that lefties have a categorical hate for. Like higher up bankers also tend to be pretty responsible for a lot of really bad shit in cities. But it's not that every individual there is bad. It's that as a class of people, as a group, like they do a lot of harm, you know?
Yeah, and I know you wanted to talk about like the cops and all that. So let me ask you something then. Would you be okay with the movement having not solidified around Black Lives Matter and the victimization, but rather the core problem of the laws and the things that the police officers are forced to do? In other ways, it becomes more of a Blue Lives Matter because they're taking Black lives. So we're going to reform the police department. In a way that helps everybody, right? Because it's not just Black lives that get killed by police officers in
I
these
don't
incidents.
I don't think that the police are the victims here, so I don't know how effective that would be.
Come
There are
on.
issues other than black people dying by police that are more important. Like if you actually look at how many black people die in the US, where that death comes from, police are not even close to like the top generally. Black on black violence is a huge issue, but black on black violence is caused by socioeconomic conditions the police perpetuate. So the reason why it focuses on the Black Lives Matter, police death kind of thing is because it's very easy to center a movement around that anger. It's very easy to focus on that concern. It's about
It's more
weaponizing
lazy
people's
than
hatred.
easy. It's more lazy than
No,
easy.
no, movements have to do this. We've been fighting for civil rights in this country for 150 years. We're not going to pansy ass
But
walk our way around.
tell me one law, one legislation that you disagree with that overwhelmingly put the black that basically makes the Black American unequal to say a Hispanic American like myself or a white American. What law makes them unequal?
So here's the question. Are you asking which law leads to inequality or which law specifically says, haha, black people bad?
Yeah, more of the latter because
Okay, then that's the issue. That's not where racism begins and ends. That's the easy racism to deal with. But when it comes to like what fucks over black people, if you gave me some time, I could give you a list like that I could spend an entire stream listing off, from redlining and housing and banking loan development projects to the way we treat crime to the individual differentiation of like judicial sentences that are determined by the discretion of the judge and the mandatory minimum sentencing for three strikes law. There are like so many, but none of them say fuck black people, lol. None of them are that simple. It's just about like, you know,
right.
how
So
do you
would you
fuck
say
over
that
black
the
people
disparity
without
for
saying
African
it?
Americans, the disparity for African Americans, does it vary based on state and location? In other words, a California African American walking down the street, is he to fear his life just as much as somebody walking down in Arkansas?
Oh yeah, of course. I mean, of course it varies. Yeah,
Come
but
on.
but
It's so liberal. It's such a liberal area.
it varies, but there's always a greater risk for a black person than for a white person in most parts of this country. Yeah. Also, wait. Liberal areas are not safe for black people. I grew up in Los Angeles. That place
They
is
literally
that place is.
have safe zones. No. They literally have safe zones, and they're literally immigrant safe havens, right?
Wait. I'm sorry. You need to go to like Los Angeles or another like safe haven city. These places are not safe for black people or frankly any people, but definitely not black people. I don't know if you think Los Angeles is like a big safe space or something, but these cities are racked with poverty, crime, and homelessness, and a lot of that is for POC. Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that because I think we can agree on that, right? We can say to a certain extent the our attention needs to go to the legislators who legislate the rules and how to deal with people who break those rules. And unfortunately, the job of the police officers is to do that. Just like Amazon can pass down corporate rules, right, to their whatever company, and then the workers, the managers, they have to comply. That's their job. That's their duty.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like the Nazi soldiers in the Wehrmacht. Yeah, I mean,
Come on.
you're just following orders for like a bad institution. But sometimes the way to fight that
Right,
bad
much like
institution
Stalin.
necessarily involves fighting against the underlings of that institution. I don't think fighting Amazon warehouse employees in any way, shape, or form assists in fighting against corporate greed, but the fight for
Just
civil
like
rights,
fighting cops doesn't assist.
the fight for civil rights has always been a fight against the police. All the way back from the slave days, through the Civil War, the slave patrols that were roped into the Confederate armies, all the way up to Jim Crow days, all the way up to the Civil Rights Act, the fight for civil rights has always been anti-police, because the police are that wall. We have to push against that wall every single time we want to make life better for minorities. The police have always been on the wrong side of history, every single time.
Right. So when they assisted in the first African Americans going to universities mixed together with whites, those
they had to
police
be forced to by the president. The president had to force them to, because the governor wouldn't allow. That was the military, not the police. And
right, but you think that was the first incident, by the way? Like, do you think that after that, like the 3-4 decades we've passed since then, there haven't been similar positions these police officers have to be in against racists and against
wait. Police. Wait. I didn't say police never do good things. I said the boundary for fighting for civil rights has always been a fight against the police. Of course, there have been police who have done things that aren't racist. There are police officers who have investigated crimes committed against black people by white people. There are judges who sentence people for hate crimes against black people. This all happens, but pushing the envelope, making society better systemically, is a fight against the police. The police are the architects of black
how is
suffering.
fighting the police? All right, fine. Let me ask you this then. How is fighting the police fighting systemic justice when systemic justice is handed out through the courts, not the police department?
Oh, because the police department aren't the ones who do most of this. So, first of all, a ton of the injustice committed against black people is done through police discretion. When it comes to over-policing, when it comes to stop and frisk, when it comes to violence, when it comes to shootings, these things are just on the police. Additionally, the police are the operators, the working hands of the criminal justice system. They aren't actually a part of the judicial process, but they do assist in collecting evidence. They do bring people to court. And the problem with this is, historically, the police have always been very light-handed when it comes to showing up with evidence in favor of cases which are meant to advance civil rights. The police have historically collaborated with traditionalist institutions designed to prevent civil progress. Additionally, the police have a tremendous amount of sway and autonomy when it comes to how they actually enforce these laws. Many good cops, for example, just won't bust people on petty drug charges. If you're a cop and you find a 17-year-old with like a dime bag of weed, if you're a good cop, you're not gonna fucking bust this kid. Give this kid a fucking felony conviction because they wanted to get a little bit high after they were done with their homework. But a lot of bad cops will go ahead and do it anyway. Whether or not cops are responsible for all of it, cops are the line at which we meet people. We can't protest judges. The juries are the ones that come up with the convictions. But juries are just random citizens. So we can't do that. There has to be a wall. There has to be a front. And the police show up at every protest. The police show up at every demonstration. They are that front. So pushing against them pushes against the system. That's how it worked back in the civil rights days, too.
Yeah, no, I think you make a good point there, but I would just say that, yeah, that applies to everybody, right? Like if there was a white nationalist like gathering or what have you, or I don't know, some angry Karen moms, the cops would be there to push back as well. Would you agree?
Sometimes the cops clash with right-leaning protests, but there's a lot of evidence to suggest that the cops are way more lenient when it comes to those groups. Like, keep in mind, the only time the NRA ever advocated for gun restrictions was when the Black Panther Party was open carrying outside of courthouses. The cops, the police have stood down as like far-right militiamen storm government offices and like declare their intentions to secede, you know? The cops are way more lenient with white lunatics than they are with black civil rights protesters. Historically, this has always been the case. There are a lot of the cops majority vote Trump.
They feel like that's not the case, you know, that their side doesn't feel like that's the case. They feel like, if anything, they're being too precautious with Black Lives Matter.
Well, their side is insane, dude. Far-right movements. No. Wait, yeah, they're far-right protesters. Of course these people are insane. These people think their children are being indoctrinated by a Marxist cult when they're taught.
These are people who you have to live with. You have to.
Yeah, I do. It fucking sucks. Yeah, they're holding our country back. Our country is like the #1 threat to global peace because of these people specifically. Yeah, but they are fucking crazy.
Yeah, and here's the thing. There probably are on both sides, right? Throwing Molotov cocktails at police officers while they're on duty, to me, doesn't seem like a class solidarity move.
Well, that really depends on how far into the protests you are. Sometimes that can be a very class solidarity move. But with that jump aside, the categorical beliefs of far-right protesters are fucking ludicrous. These people think that whites are under threat. These people think that white genocide is when you teach your children that Christopher Columbus wasn't a god given to Earth by, by the heavens. These people's priorities and understanding of the world is completely warped, so I don't really care what their perspective is. The FBI has been warning about white nationalist infiltration in local police departments for decades now. Like literally, like, holy fuck, guys.
And I'm sorry, wasn't it Donald Trump recently who's promising $500 billion to Black communities and to rebuild and a Second Step Act?
This is a complete pivot. We're talking about police, aren't we?
It's basically, because you're saying that the right, this is the man that they idolize, right? So he's the leader.
Wait. I was talking about right-leaning militias. We can't, wait. Just because I'm criticizing one element of a group doesn't mean we can jump to another related group and say, well, what about this other thing? Of course, Donald Trump is...
So all of Antifa, the people who throw Molotov cocktails, they're not Bernie Sanders either. So if you're going to hit me with that, I think it's...
Wait, I haven't. I would, if you were criticizing Antifa, I would never respond by saying something good about Bernie Sanders. I stick to the thing we're talking about. So the far-right militias are fucking crazy. Donald Trump is also fucking crazy, and he is a racist, undeniably. But what act are we referring to here? The Step Act? He's doing some like desperate promise to black people in an attempt to get more than 8% of the American black vote for the upcoming election. I don't think
as opposed to Joe Biden opposing busing, right? Where black people can go to like whatever school.
Wait, that was a pivot again. We're talking about Donald Trump. Yes, Joe Biden is also a racist. I don't deny that.
I mean, I'm just going with if you want to ask me a direct question, I'm not gonna like, you know.
But you keep talking about like another related thing. Listen, I'm not like a Dem supporter. I fucking hate Joe Biden. You can look at my content back during the Democratic primaries. I fucking hate Joe Biden. I do think he's funny from time to time in like a senile kind of way, but that's it, you know. I do think he's better than Trump though by a huge margin. So I'll defend him on that.
Right. So when it comes to like police brutality, I do think that there's an issue there, but I also think that, you know, it's weird that like, okay, so in urban areas, right, crime is committed disproportionately by African-American communities. Mm-hmm. So of course, the way the government works, by the way, it's silly, it's stupid. There's no cabal. These are Americans who are fat and lazy, who are sitting in these bureaucratic positions. Okay, so they are reflective and they respond without really thinking things through, right? And this happens across every government department. So that's why when they see that the crime is up in urban areas, they deploy more forces and funding to those areas.
Yeah,
and to say that racist is kind of weird to me.
Yeah, well, because the thing is that might be like a good intuitive decision, but I don't. These are elected representatives, so I'm not going to go like, oh, a fourth grader would have thought of that, so you're off the hook for the consequences of your dumb decision. It turns out, it's not just about deploying more police to like black areas. It's the way they handle this, the broken windows policing, the disproportionate application of from search warrants to car stops to stop and frisk. These things, if you boil them all together, I don't know if the people who made these laws are racist, like personally, but I don't really care. If the outcomes are racist, that's the only thing I care about. Black people don't have to be in the position they're in today.
How is the data and the numbers? How are those showing you? Like, if we're both looking at this data, right, these charts, and we're both in like a classroom environment. Oh, hey, professor, look at this data. You know, it kind of does show that the crime is being proportionately distributed, not disproportionately.
Well, the data doesn't show that, unfortunately.
They're black.
Well, the data doesn't show that. If the data did show that, then it would be a good argument. But if you'd like, I have a document with dozens of citations on ways that even if you account for the disproportionate crime rate, black people are still treated much, much worse. From everything from judicial discretion when it comes to sentencing length, to judicial discretion when it comes to mandatory minimums, to police behavior, to pullovers, to stops. On all of these instances, demonstrated time and time again, black people are being treated worse, disproportionate to the amount of crime they commit.
Right. You can't do anything as much as I can't do anything about someone's interpersonal racism, right? If some judge is like 80 years old and still sitting on the court bench and the population there is 80% black, it comes down to self-responsibility to a certain point. Why don't you get your lazy ass off of your couch and go vote that damn judge out?
Wait. Okay, so hold on. Generally speaking, when a race of people are being oppressed, my initial response isn't, wow, what lazy assholes. for not voting their oppressor out. Many times judges are appointed, juries are the ones who actually cast the vote, and you don't get a decision as to that, and you don't have any direct control over the police. Your attempt to blame them it seems a little bit callous and not very productive either. There are systemic problems here. We can fix them. With enough people, enough time, and enough money, we can make this country, we can make America great again, okay? Like it was back in the 1400s, before white man ever touched the shores, okay? We can make it great again.
I'm pretty sure there were people of color in the 1400s in America.
They're probably, well, I was being cheeky there, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. I love it. I'm here for it. But look, even if you change everything, right? Progressive judge, pink hair, you know, she was part of BLM back in her heyday. And then it's still Kentucky, and there's still backwards people there. And the 12 that are voting, right? These juries, they're interpersonally racist. What can I do about that? I can't do anything about that.
Yeah, well, it's a long cultural change. None of this is easy. I got you. I saw the text. And no, thank you. With counterpoints, we'll talk to counterpoints later. That's a more serious discussion. Yeah, well, it's a long-standing cultural change. So some stuff can be addressed like now. There are certain legal discrepancies and certain biased judges, stuff like that, that could be addressed like immediately. But a lot of it is like a long-standing cultural issue that needs to be addressed over decades.
Yes, and I agree. And that's the point. That's my point, right? If I'm going to leave anything here, it's a cultural change that needs to happen. Yeah. Because legally, we've done a lot. We've done as much as we could possibly do.
That's not true. We have done a lot, but we have not done as much. We have done a lot. We have not done as much as we could possibly do. We can do way more. And I think, by the way, the fight for a better world should be an ongoing one, no? I mean, we don't want to, like, stop, do we? It's not like...
Absolutely, right.
Yeah. But that's all we're saying. A lot of people treat this, like, ACAP shit as, like, a broader threat against, like, white America. And if white America is about making black people miserable, then I guess it is. But for a lot of people who support BLM or who say, you know, fuck cops or whatever, this isn't about individually hating people. This is about a long-standing historical tendency for this country to just fucking dump on black people. Like, way more than is reasonable, you know? We can all get a little bit of dumping. Black people, way more than they need.
I don't know, man. They hold a lot of power. They hold a lot of power for being 13% of the population, just like the Jewish people do, right? That's the kind of...
Whoa, wait. Are you a Nazi?
Wait, why is everything like Nazi or communist?
Well, generally, when people bring up disproportionate Jewish control, wait! I thought we were going somewhere. Wait, are you a warrior of the Goyim trying to fight against the chosen people?
Oh Lord! Look, let me tell you this. You don't think that Black Americans hold a lot of power? Like, they're very go-getters when it comes to hip hop, Hollywood.
Black people have a lot of presence in culture. Yeah, they're very good with music and a lot of other like prominent art forms. Yeah, they always have been.
Jews are very good with money.
Well, yeah, but do you know why both of those things are?
Yeah, because the Jewish were forced to not own certain things in these countries that they were all kicked out of. And the only thing they could do is, let me hold your money for you. I'll make a little bit off of that and a little interest.
Wait. They were forced to be. So banking only works if you can charge interest. The concept of banking only works if you use interest. But for the Catholics, usury was a sin. So they said, hey, Jews, you know, we want to fucking kill you, but we also need banks to keep our country running. You run the banks, we'll let you live. And for that reason, for literal centuries, this like very oppressed ethnic group did develop a sort of affinity for financial relations as a survival mechanism.
The white people are stupid for thinking there's a cabal around that.
Yeah, well, I agree with that. But likewise, black people developed an affinity for their cultural predilections because a lot of the music that black people invented or worked upon heavily at the turn of the 20th century was considered degenerate and like animalistic by the white population. So in Harlem, black people were free to invent.
They all accept it, and they all wear baggy pants, and they all wear hoodies.
Well, the point that I'm getting at is that the relative positions of Jewish people and black people in America today are largely shaped by the bigotry of the hegemonic white society. But we don't all have to be like that, you know? This is a prison of our own creation.
I like to look at it as more of a business transaction between many multicultural groups that's leaning towards a multicultural fascist empire. And I'm here for it.
Why do we have to be fascist?
I mean, aren't we imperialistic though? I mean, you would concede to that, right?
Yeah, we're imperialistic, but that's not the only component of fascism. Monarchies were imperialistic.
We're spied on. But these are all factors in a fascist regime.
Yeah, sure, but we're trying to stop that.
Well, sure, but I mean, but what I'm saying is that like this idea that like that white people are going to be like supremacists and there's going to be like a ethno movement.
Well, they are. The white nationalists have been in this country for centuries. They just keep losing.
Right. And the people who support Black Lives Matter, even though the proletariat is hurt by that because the bourgeois have infiltrated those movements and funneled money to it because it's okay for the corporatists.
Are you like a political compass memes user? I feel like you're throwing points out from like the Nosbel range now, but no Nosbel would call themselves a centrist. Are you giving me a loop here?
Are you trying to box me in right now? Are you trying to box me into a certain category?
You're throwing me for a loop, aren't you? No, the bourgeois have not infiltrated BLM. The bourgeois have done what they always do, which is to financially capitalize on popular social movements. But that's not the same as them corrupting those movements.
Right, and they would never support a white only exclusive movement, right? Because it's detrimental to their bottom line.
Yeah, until that white exclusive movement became powerful enough that defying them ended up hurting their bottom line. That's one of the safety nets of capitalism. A lot of lefties don't appreciate that. It is more financially viable to appeal to people of every ethnic persuasion, and for that reason, corporations are always going to at least maintain a veneer of social progressivism, which can be used as a shield of popular opinion against more right-leaning movements. It's one of the neat benefits of a market-driven system, but it's not perfect and it's not sincere.
Yeah, my problem is I just feel the left is too radical. I can't support the left because they're too, commie and too socialistic-y.
Gotcha. Like I love you, buddy. You know that, right?
Yeah, I know. Hey, I had a lot of fun, man. I appreciate you having me on.
Okay. All right. You have a good one, okay?
All right. Cheers.
I have no fucking idea what that guy believes.